Secretary Hegseth, tomorrow is 2 months since the war has begun. You've testified that it was $25 billion in cost in terms of the munitions we used and what we paid for it. But when you add to that the damage that was done to our bases and today's dollars for buying replacement munitions and replacement aircrafts, what has the total cost been over the last 60 days?
That number right now reflects the total cost that we're seeing.
Including buying in today's dollars the new weapons and replacements, and including the damage there? That's your testimony?
If there's
under
adjustments to that, I would defer to the comptroller on that.
And how much are you seeing in terms of, are you asking in terms of supplemental funding just for the Iran mission from this committee?
If and when a supplemental is submitted,
Yeah, how much?
the majority of it would not just be for,
But
for
what would be the
Fury, it would be
ballpark for Iran?
munitions related to the entirety
Just
of
a
what
number,
we want to
sir.
get done.
A number, what would you submit? What are
It
you
would be
requesting?
within on Iran, it would be less than $25 billion, but there's a lot more we would ask for beyond
Well,
just Iran.
you're saying it's
considering-
25 billion. Okay, I would just, if you
Okay.
come back, you want to revise those numbers, because all the experts are disagreeing with you when it comes to today's dollars and damage, but you can revise it. How much did it cost American taxpayers in terms of the strike to the Iranian school where kids were killed? Do you have that number in terms of the missiles we used?
As I've said, that unfortunate situation remains under investigation.
You don't know how much it
15-6
costs the
investigation, but I
taxpayer?
wouldn't tie a cost to that, to anything.
It's a reasonable question, no, sir? I mean, our taxpayer money was going there. Do you know how much it will cost Americans in terms of their increased cost in gas and food over the next year because of the Iran war?
I would simply ask you what the cost is of an Iranian nuclear bomb.
I'm going to give you that
I
opportunity.
would simply ask you what the.
Yeah,
you're
but
playing gotcha
sir,
questions
sir,
about
no, it's
domestic
not.
things. I'm not.
You're saying it's a gotcha question to ask what it's going to be in terms of the increased
Why
cost
won't
of
you
gas
answer what
and
it costs to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear
food?
bomb?
I give you that, sir. But let me.
What
if you
would
could
it
just
cost?
ask my
What would you pay to ensure Iran doesn't
But
get a nuclear
can you-
bomb?
Do you,
What would
sir,
you pay?
I reclaim my time. Do you not know? You had no one do the analysis of what the increased cost of gas and food on the American people are going to be?
What is the cost
Let
of
me- let
Iran
me give
holding
you the
that
number.
straight at
Let me
issue
give
with
you the
nuclear
number.
weapons?
It's $631 billion, which means it's an increase of $5,000 a year for American households. Now, let me give you this point. You're saying that your operation is preventing a nuclear Iran. Will you acknowledge that there is an economic cost to the American people for doing what you believe is necessary to make Iran denuclear? Will you acknowledge the economic cost?
We have an incredible economic team that's managing this better than
Yeah, but
what the previous
but to
administration did to our
acknowledge that-
economy,
to acknowledge
what the
there's a
previous
cost.
administration
You-
did
you
with
don't even
inflation,
know what the- you know
what
what's
the previous
upsetting? I reclaim
administration
my
did with
time. You know,
COVID,
Secretary-
and you're going to
Secretary,
lecture this
I reclaim
administration
my
about the
time, sir.
economy?
You know what is upsetting to me?
Incredible.
You didn't even do the analysis on how much it's costing the American people. It's one thing if you said, okay, it costs the American people $5,000, but we think it's worth it. That's what we've done in World War II and other wars. Here's what it costs. You got to pay for it. You don't even know what the average American is paying. You don't know what we paid in terms of the missiles that hit the Iranian school. You don't know what we're paying in terms of gas. You don't know what we're paying in terms of food. Your $25 billion number is totally off. It's the incompetence. It's the incompetence. Let me ask you this. Certainly, maybe here we'll find agreement. There was still 440 pounds of low-enriched uranium, correct, when President Obama, after the JCPOA? Is that accurate?
The amounts and types are classified.
Okay. Will you acknowledge that there were 970 pounds of uranium enriched after Trump tore up the JCPOA?
The JCPOA was a terrible deal that allowed Iran a path to
I
a
know
nuclear bomb.
You deal with vague platitudes. I'm asking you about numbers. Like, you don't know what gas costs, you don't know what food costs, you don't know what the operation costs. You know, I get sound bites, but how about numbers? Do you know how much the enriched uranium was after you ripped up the JCPOA? Trump did.
I'll give you a number. I know that, as was stated by early on, the price of gas is twice as expensive in California, your home state, as anywhere else in the country because of the horrible policies your state pursued.
You know what? It used to be that that type of stuff worked, and then you started to lose the people that you campaigned you wanted to be for, because you said you wouldn't get us into bad wars. You said you would bring down the prices. You know what I'm sad for? I'm sad for all the people who voted for Trump. I'm sad for them because you betrayed them. You betrayed a lot of that MAGA base. And you know who knows that? J.D. Vance knows that.
Illinois, Mr. Sorensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To General Kane, on behalf of myself and my constituents, we thank you for your service and your leadership to our military men and women, to our service members and the veterans that I see in our committee today. Thank you for your support of our great country. Mr. Hegseth, I hear from your officials in our briefings here on the Hill, and because I live in an Army town, I now hear from neighbors at the grocery store who are worried about our munitions stockpiles that are now down to critical levels, and they sure don't want another forever war. So, Mr. Secretary, first of all, talk to us about the need to renew munition stockpiles, and tell us what happens when munition stockpiles become depleted.
Well, first of all, I would note that, as you know, we give weekly briefings on munitions to this committee, so it's not something that's withheld from any of the members here.
We appreciate that.
But it's also a topic that isn't something that should be publicly discussed as far as any shortfalls that may exist. But I would assure you that there are not shortfalls that exist in our ability to execute the missions around the world. And the reason we're investing in the defense industrial base with $1.5 trillion is to make sure the greatest companies in the world, which have been falling behind for decades, are running faster than ever before to give us 2x, 3x, 4x of the critical munitions, your Patriots, your THAADs, your SM-3s, every other standard missile
And my neighbors work really hard to make sure that we can
It's jobs in America. It's
right.
what our warfighters need.
So,
We're
could you
focused on
tell me why we're firing the people at Joint Munitions Command for no cause other than just telling them they're overhired or they're surplus employee? At Joint Munitions Command?
I would have to look into the particular circumstances of that, but there have been places where we haven't been moving fast enough with munitions, and when people don't move fast enough in the Department of War, we find someone else that will run fast.
This is Joint Munitions Command. I mean, your department says that you're prioritizing munitions, yet you cut 58% of Joint Munitions Command at Rock Island. But let me move on. My district is also
Munitions are not built by commands. Munitions are built by businesses.
They're the ones that are
and we're
going
very
to
good
get
at
it done.
building commands and bureaucracies and slapping 3- and 4-star generals in charge of things that don't move things any faster. So our job is to unleash the private sector to provide these things. How are we going to get it done
if we don't have Joint Munitions Command? But let me move on. We also have Army Sustainment Command in my district. Could you tell me why we're firing folks at Army Sustainment Command when now is the time that we should be giving our soldiers every piece of sustainment that we can give them?
Because as I've stated, the status quo at this department before the Trump administration was unacceptable, and changes had to be made.
Do you think it's acceptable to fire veterans from jobs where they've been, you know, I talk to my neighbors at the Arsenal, and they've worked there 20, 30 years on top of their service to this country, and they're doing it exemplary.
Great performers will always have a job at the Department of War, and when you reestablish merit, sometimes things happen, but we're grateful for all the vets that serve. And in fact, we've created a Patriot pipeline for service members to get into the defense industrial base manufacturing business, to consider that as a second career. So we're leaning into vets and service members as the workforce of the future in our department.
And this isn't me. I mean, they tell me that, you know, they feel you're taking a wrecking ball to the civilian workforce. But, you know, I want to go and follow up on Congressman Norcross's questions about why you terminated collective bargaining earlier this month. This affects hundreds of thousands of hardworking DOD employees. So many of them are veterans who have honorably served our country. You testified that if you work hard, you do the work, you keep your job. But that's not what's happening. And you allege it is being done to maximize efficiency? Explain that.
I thank you for asking that question. I'd love to clarify. I fundamentally believe the Department of War should not be subject to collective bargaining, full stop.
So people shouldn't be able to fight for good wages and being treated well?
I think our department does a great job evaluating and providing pay and benefits for folks across the spectrum.
I would love to invite you to the Rock Island Arsenal so you can look these patriots in the eyes and tell them that. How does creating chaos for long-term civilian workers actually maximize efficiency? Do you have any comment on that?
There are plenty of examples of shipyards and other manufacturing plants where there are restraints that limit the hours, limit the ability of leaders to ensure we're meeting the goals we're supposed to, and I don't think we should live to those constrictions.
Okay. Well, you know what? I want to use the rest of my time to the men and women of our armed forces. Please go forth with the integrity and the morality that you've carried before this administration took us down a path that has allies turning away